The 2021 NFL Draft is loaded with wide receiver talent, and I mean from all the way from the top and all the way to the bottom of the wide receiver rankings. This is probably one of the more stacked wide receiver classes in all of NFL history, or it has the potential to be one. I mean, you have guys who are projected to be late round picks who could easily be some of the top receivers in this class when it's all said and done. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 receivers in the 2021 NFL Draft, all the way from high school to present day. Now, just a quick warning with the video, this is just my top 5, and this was actually really hard to make, mainly because this receiving class is so stacked, and you can put many people in the top 5, and this is just my top 5. And when I talk about the receivers in this video in the order that I have, there really isn't a order for top 5 from 1 to 5. It's mainly just I view these guys as the top 5 receivers in the draft. Now let's get on to the video. The first receiver that I'm going to be talking about today is Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase, coming out of the 2018 recruiting class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, he ranked as the 84th best player nationally, the 15th best player in his position, and a 4-star recruit. Now, Jamar Chase held a total of 28 offers coming out of high school from schools such as LSU, Auburn, Michigan, Florida, Arkansas, Florida State, and Georgia, just to name a few, and he would end up going to LSU. Chase would also have a very good senior season where he had 1,011 receiving yards and 13 total touchdowns through the air. Jamar Chase in his freshman campaign in the 2018 college football season would have 313 receiving yards, averaging 14 yards per reception and 3 touchdowns. But going into the 2019 season, he would make a huge jump in his game that not many people were expecting nationally, where in the 2019 season, in 14 games played with LSU, he would have 1,780 receiving yards, 21 yards per reception, and 20 touchdowns for the season. Not only that, he was a consensus All-American and won the Biletnikoff Award. Before the 2020 college football season, Jamar Chase was seen as someone that was a Heisman contender and seen as someone that was probably going to win the Biletnikoff Award again, or really had a high chance at doing it. But Jamar Chase would not play a single game in 2020 as he would opt out of the season. Out of all the players that opted out of the 2020 college football season, Jamar Chase is one of the only ones whose stock really did not fall at all. He's seen as a consensus top 10 pick and seen by many as the best receiver in this draft. A lot of people praise Jamar Chase as someone that has an alpha mentality and a mentality of if the ball's thrown his way, he is going to come down with it no matter what, and he's very successful at that. But there are some criticisms in his games, as some people think he relies on his strength too much, and that he could be a little bit of a better route runner, but those are all things that could be fixed once he gets to the NFL, and honestly, I think he's going to ball out no matter what team he goes to. The next wide receiver that I'm going to be talking about is Jalen Waddle. Now, Jalen Waddle comes out of the 2018 recruiting class, where he ranked as a 4-star recruit according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, ranked as the 39th best player in the nation and the 5th best player in his position. He would end up choosing the Alabama Crimson Tide over schools like Florida State, Oregon, Texas A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma, just to name a few. Jalen Waddle for the Crimson Tide was an immediate impact player. In his freshman campaign in 2018, he played in all 15 games, had 848 receiving yards, averaging 19 yards per reception, and 7 touchdowns. He also did quite a bit of damage in the punt return game as well. As a sophomore, Jalen Waddle would get less targets and would only have 33 receptions in the season, where he had 560 receiving yards, averaging 17 yards per reception and 6 touchdowns. But in this season, he did even more damage in the special teams side of things for Alabama. Going into his junior season for the 2020 college football season, Jalen Waddle was expected to be one of the best receivers in all of college football. And when he was playing, honestly, he was. He would be very limited this season, as he would only play in 6 games due to injury. He played in 5 regular season games and then played in the national championship versus Ohio State. And for this season, he had 591 receiving yards, averaging 21 yards per reception and 4 touchdowns. He played very well in that very short amount of time. Waddle is seen as one of the best receiving prospects in this whole NFL draft. He is praised for his speed, the ability to stretch the field and catch a very good contested ball, and also having some very good instinct skills. Now, he has been criticized before for not exactly using his strength always, and not having the best footwork against the press, and having some injury issues. The next player that I'm going to be talking about today in this video is Devonta Smith out of the 2017 recruiting class. Now, in the 2017 recruiting class, Devonta Smith, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, was a 4-star recruit, the 62nd best player in the nation, and the 9th best receiver in his class. He would end up choosing Alabama over schools like Florida State, LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, Auburn, and Florida, just to name a few. When Devonta Smith was a freshman at Alabama, he wouldn't necessarily be an immediate impact player, as he only had 160 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. In 2018, as a sophomore, he would get more touches and see more playing time, as he had 693 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in that season. He would make a huge jump in his game in the 2019 season as a junior, where he had 1,256 receiving yards, averaging almost 19 yards per reception and 14 touchdowns. But in 2020, as a senior, he would have his best season yet and would even win a Heisman and would be honestly unstoppable in every game that he played in. In this season, he had 1,856 receiving yards, averaging 16 yards per reception and 23 touchdowns. Smith has a lot of strengths in his arsenal, such as his production that he had at Alabama and being a consistent receiver with them, having some incredible footwork, and being a very good route runner and having some incredible hands. Now, the biggest knock against Devonta Smith that everyone always talks about is his size. People talk about how he's always way too skinny. He's too skinny this, he's too skinny that. Which, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, yes, he is a skinny receiver, especially compared to all the other ones in this draft. But let's be honest, he has not faced any injury issues to this point so far, and it's been proven pretty much since high school that his size has not mattered for him at any level of competition. The next receiver that I'm going to be talking about is Rashad Bateman. Now, Rashad Bateman comes out of the 2018 recruiting class, and according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, he ranked as a 4-star recruit and the 61st best player in the nation in his position. Now, he held offers from schools such as Minnesota, Georgia, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas A&M, just to name a few, and he would end up going to Minnesota. Bateman was an immediate impact player for the Gophers in his freshman campaign in 2018, where in 13 games played, he had 704 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. In 2019, in his sophomore campaign, he had a breakout season with the Gophers, where he had 1,219 receiving yards, averaging an insane 20 yards per reception and 11 touchdowns. In 2020, he originally opted out, but he would opt back in for the season, and he played pretty well in 5 games, where he had 472 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Some of his strengths that he has been praised for by many is that he's an assertive pass catcher, a complete receiver, consistently creates separation, and has a good catch radius. Now, some of the criticisms in his games that he has is that he doesn't have an elite explosiveness or speed, can push off the opposition, and creates a lot of contact, and was rarely used as a blocker. The final player that I'm going to be talking about today is Terrace Marshall, who came out of the 2018 recruiting class. Now, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings for that class, he was a 5-star recruit, the 13th best player nationally, and the number 3 receiver in the nation. He chose LSU over schools such as Florida State, Texas, Texas A&M, and Alabama, just to name a few. Terrace Marshall, in his freshman campaign with LSU, he would play in 9 games, and he had 192 receiving yards, averaging 16 yards per reception, but had 0 touchdowns. In 2019, as a sophomore, he would have a bigger impact on the national championship squad, as in 12 games played, he had 46 receptions for 671 receiving yards, averaging 14 yards per reception, and 13 touchdowns. In 2020, in his junior campaign, he was finally wide receiver 1, and he balled out, as in 7 games, he had 731 receiving yards, 15 yards per reception, and 10 touchdowns. Some of the things that Teresh Marshall Jr. has been praised for at his time at LSU and going into this draft is that he has good size, he's fast in a straight line, he's a smooth receiver, he finds the end zone often, and he's a very good red zone weapon, just to name a few. Now, some of the criticism in his games, he's not super twitchy, not very sudden out of breaks, needs development on his route tree, and his hands are good, but they're not the best. Also, before I conclude this video, leave some comments down below about who are your top 5 receivers in this draft. And before you head out, remember to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly out.